This is a plastic organizer. Its only purpose was to hold random stuff, but somehow I turned it into a fully functional mini laptop. It's small enough to take anywhere, yet it's capable of browsing the web, watching videos, and even playing games. Getting here wasn't easy though. There were times when I was ready to give up because everything was far more difficult than I expected. But in the end, I made it work. So let me show you how I built it, the challenges I had to overcome, and whether this tiny laptop is actually worth using. Let's get started. And as you can see, this box is tiny. When it's closed, it almost looks like a miniature laptop, but it's only about 2.5 centimeters thick. And because I'm working with such a ridiculously small amount of space, finding components that actually fit inside is going to be one of the biggest challenges of this entire project. Let's start with the display. I think this is probably the best position for it. It took me forever to find a screen small enough for this build, and even then, it still doesn't quite fit. So I really only have one option. I need to carefully shave away some material from the inside of the lid to create a little more room. This part requires a lot of patience. The walls of this box are already pretty thin, and the last thing I want to do is accidentally grind straight through them. After slowly removing material and checking the fit over and over again, perfect. The screen finally fits inside the lid. Now comes the next challenge. I need an actual computer small enough to fit in the bottom half. Ideally, I want a tiny single-board computer with the CPU and RAM already built in, so I don't have to waste any extra space. Originally, I planned to use this Raspberry Pi 3 that I already had lying around, but there's a problem. The USB ports are simply too tall. They're almost as tall as the entire inside of the box, so there's no way I'd be able to close the lid. That meant I needed something even smaller. I started looking at some of the smallest computers I could find, but even the tiniest conventional mini PCs were still too big for this thing. Then I came across a few really interesting single-board computers. Some of them were absolutely tiny and could even run Linux. There was just one major problem. They didn't have a built-in video output, so I couldn't simply connect them to this display and use them like a normal desktop computer. But luckily, I eventually found something that checked almost every box: the Raspberry Pi Zero 2W. It's absolutely tiny. It has a proper video output, and it can run a full desktop operating system. Sure, it's not exactly a powerhouse, but for a project this small, it might be exactly what I need. So let's get this thing out of the box and see just how ridiculously tiny it really is. Oh my god, this thing is absolutely tiny. I can comfortably hold the entire computer between my fingers. The board measures just 65 by 30 millimeters, which is ridiculously small compared to pretty much any normal gaming PC. Just to give you some perspective, here's the Pi next to my phone, an external drive enclosure, and even a regular power adapter. Yeah, it's seriously tiny. Now that we know just how small the Pi Zero 2W really is, there's one important thing I need to figure out before installing it. How do I actually use this thing? Because believe it or not, I've never used one before. And since I was way too lazy to read through the entire manual, I did what any reasonable person would do. I found a YouTube tutorial. At this point, my strategy was pretty simple. Follow every single step and try not to mess anything up. Normally, you'd install an operating system using a USB drive, but the Pi Zero 2W doesn't have a standard full-size USB port. Instead, the operating system boots directly from a micro SD card. So I flashed the OS onto the card, inserted it into the Pi, connected everything, and let's see what happens. Perfect, it boots. But now there's another problem. Since there's no full-size USB port, I can't just plug in a regular keyboard and mouse. So I'll need a micro USB OTG hub that gives me multiple standard USB ports. With that connected, I can finally plug in a keyboard, mouse, and other peripherals, and use this tiny board just like a regular computer. Now that I finally understand how the Pi Zero 2W works, it's time to figure out how to fit everything inside this tiny plastic box. The first thing I need to do is remove all of these internal dividers. They're taking up valuable space, and I need the bottom of the case to be as flat and open as possible. Once those were gone, I started experimenting with different layouts for all the components. This part is actually more important than it looks. I need everything positioned carefully so there's enough room for the wiring later, while still keeping the entire build as compact and organized as possible. After moving things around a few times, I think this is the best layout. First, I secured the Pi Zero 2W using 4 small plastic standoffs and screws, making sure the board couldn't move around inside the case. Then I did the same thing with the display controller board, mounting it firmly next to the Pi. And with that done, I'd say we're officially about 50% of the way through this project. But unfortunately, the remaining 50% is probably going to be a lot harder. And almost immediately, I ran into another major problem. Both the Raspberry Pi and the display controller use mini HDMI for video. So naturally, I needed a cable with mini HDMI on both ends. Sounds simple, right? Well, apparently not. I searched through both eBay and Amazon, and finding the exact cable I needed was surprisingly difficult. The few options I could find were way too long, which obviously isn't going to work inside a case this small. So I decided to make my own. I bought two mini HDMI connectors for about $5. And now comes the difficult part. I have to wire them together myself. I can't just use ordinary electrical wire for something like this. HDMI carries high-speed signals, and using the wrong wiring could introduce interference or completely ruin the video signal. So instead, I'm using these tiny twisted pair wires taken from an Ethernet cable. Now I need to carefully connect each corresponding pin from one mini HDMI connector directly to the other. And trust me, this is a lot harder than it looks. The solder points are absolutely tiny, so every connection has to be extremely precise. One accidental solder bridge, one wire connected to the wrong pin, and this entire cable could be useless. At this scale, there's almost no room for mistakes. So after carefully soldering each connection one by one, all I can do now is hope this thing actually works. After almost 2 hours, I had barely managed to solder just one of the mini HDMI connectors, and I still had an entire second connector left to do. At that point, I had to admit, this just wasn't going to work. The solder joints weren't holding properly, the wires kept coming loose, and with the basic tools I had, these tiny pins were simply too difficult to solder reliably. I was completely stuck. I had no idea how I was going to make this connection work. But luckily, I found something that pretty much saved the entire project. It's a special mini HDMI connector that uses a flat ribbon cable. Instead of soldering dozens of microscopic connections by hand, the cable simply locks into the connectors on both ends. It cost me about $10, but at this point, I'd happily pay that just to never touch those tiny solder joints again. Alright, let's plug it in and see if it actually works. Oh my god, we've got a picture. It works perfectly. This little cable might have just saved the entire build. With the display finally sorted out, the next challenge was figuring out how to power this laptop. Both the Raspberry Pi and the display require a 5-volt power supply. Originally, I planned to use the same type of flat lithium batteries I've used in some of my previous projects. But there was one problem. The cells I had were simply too wide, and they took up way too much valuable space inside this tiny case. So instead, I switched to these cylindrical lithium cells, which fit the available space much better. I'm going to use 2 of them, wired in parallel to increase the overall battery capacity while keeping the same voltage. But that creates another problem. These lithium cells output around 3.7 volts, while the Raspberry Pi and display need 5 volts. So I'll need a DC-DC boost converter to step the battery voltage up from 3.7 volts to 5 volts. Alright, let's wire everything together and see if the system can actually run from the batteries. Perfect. It works. And at this point, I'm finally starting to feel a little more confident about this project. Next, I moved on to the 3 USB ports. The original plastic housings were way too bulky for a case this small, so I stripped them off to make each connector as compact as possible. Then I carefully cut 3 openings into the side of the case, lined everything up, and secured the ports firmly in place. But looking at the USB hub, I realized there was still a lot of unnecessary bulk, so I removed the hub's outer casing as well, along with 1 extra port that I wasn't going to use. Then, instead of dealing with another bulky cable and connector, I wired the micro USB power input directly to the hub's circuit board. That made the whole setup much cleaner and got rid of a bunch of unnecessary wiring. The next thing I needed was a power switch. The Raspberry Pi automatically starts up as soon as it receives power, so there isn't really a traditional power button like you'd find on a normal laptop. To solve that, I'm adding a simple switch between the battery and the Pi. This lets me physically cut or restore power to the system whenever I need to. So essentially, this becomes the laptop's main power switch. Next up was the keyboard, but as soon as I tried fitting it inside, I ran into another problem. There simply wasn't enough room. The keyboard was sitting way too high, which meant there was no way the case would close properly. So unfortunately, I had to undo a lot of the work I'd already done and rearrange almost everything inside. This time, I removed all of the motherboard standoffs and mounted both circuit boards directly against the bottom of the case. I also changed the layout slightly, moving a few components around to free up as much space as possible for the keyboard. It was frustrating having to redo everything, but after some careful rearranging, I finally had enough clearance. With the internal layout sorted out, I could move on to making the top panel. For this, I chose a sheet of clear acrylic, so it would blend in nicely with the transparent look of the original case. Just like with my previous builds, I started by cutting an opening in the center of the acrylic panel that matched the size of the keyboard. This allows the keyboard to sit recessed underneath the acrylic instead of sticking out on top, giving the whole thing a much cleaner and more laptop-like appearance. But then I ran into another problem. The case still couldn't open and close properly because the original edge of the lid was getting in the way, so I decided to cut the lid completely free from the base. Then I'll build a custom hinge system that allows the screen to open and close just like a normal laptop. Before doing that though, I still needed to finish one small detail. I drilled an opening for the charging port and positioned the battery indicator so the LED percentage display faces upward. That way I can easily check the remaining battery level without having to open anything up. Next, I'll secure the top part of the laptop in place. Then, I'm going to use 2 small tubes of thermal paste as the hinges for the laptop. I'll cut them down to about 3 centimeters and secure them in place. Once the hinges are finished, I won't attach the screen permanently just yet. First, I'm going to apply some vinyl wrap around the edges of the screen to make everything look cleaner and more polished. And with everything finished, it's finally time to put the 2 halves of the laptop together. Alright, let's turn it on. And it works. It takes a little while to boot up, but it actually makes it all the way to the operating system. I couldn't wait any longer, so I jumped straight into Minecraft to see how it would perform. Oh my god, I can see the game logo. Everything seemed to be going pretty smoothly for me. Well, not exactly. Just moving around was already a struggle for this thing. Seriously? 8 frames per second on the lowest settings? Once everything finished loading, the FPS got a little better. 18 FPS. Haha, with hardware like this, I really can't ask for much more. If there's anything I can do to improve the FPS, I'll probably install a lighter operating system on it. But that's a problem for another day. Still, the laptop is working pretty well, at least for me.